Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about The Punk Singer from 2013. And this is the winner of my Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below for my Patreon and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. The Punk Singer is the film about Kathleen Hanna, or this is also called The Punk Singer, a film about Kathleen Hanna, but it's mainly called The Punk Singer. Is about Kathleen Hanna, who is probably most famous for starting the Riot Grrrl movement, which kicked off third wave feminism. She was in bands like Bikini Kill and Le Tigre. Also came up with the name for Smells Like Teen Spirit during her friendship with Kurt Cobain. Kathleen Hanna is a really interesting, amazing person. I think first got to know her because of the Sonic Youth video, Bull in the Heather. I thought she was really awesome and sort of had a crush on her. And when I learned about her, I found her incredibly fascinating. But in the early days of the internet, you couldn't find too much. You'd hear like stories through people and stuff. Nothing not complimentary or anything, always like amazing things, but this film kind of like gives her a real voice after like various media blackouts and misunderstandings of who she was and what Riot Grrrl was. This film really kind of like sets the stage and tells you everything about her entire career. Oftentimes when you hear about that sounds like sort of a boring thing, like, Jim, why would I care about this movie? Because there's so many music documentaries where you go through someone's life, and normally I actually sort of agree because a lot of them don't do anything that interesting with it. But The Punk Singer kind of takes on a lot in it, because first off, Kathleen Hanna is an amazing, interesting person and a very charismatic person who you'd want a documentary about. Has a natural like kind of screen presence, so it's like you want to hear her talk about Riot Grrrl and feminism and her life and everything like that. She's very captivating in that way. So like making a documentary about her is going to be relatively easy, even though making films is hard. Or at least watching this film, I guess, is a relatively really easy thing to get into. It really goes down very quickly. I watched this film actually with my mother-in-law who was in town, and she actually could get really into it despite not really knowing anything about any of this. And I think The Punk Singer is really good at doing that, because it's like, I know Bikini Kill a little, I know Le Tigre very well, actually. That was like kind of the big band in New York at the time, or one of the bands that like everybody knew. I was already sort of knew a bit, and I know kind of vaguely about Riot Grrrl before this, but this really like made it like kind of come alive to me in a lot of ways. It made me really interested in it. It was directed by Suni Anderson, I think, who did a really good job of explaining like her history, her legacy, like why she's important, why these bands are important, what it was like being in these bands, what it was like being in the alternative scene, being in a band like Bikini Kill, who never really broke out like the way all the other alternative bands did. They didn't really have, I mean, I don't know if like they were courted by a label or what label they're on. They don't really get into any of the, like the business side of it. They get into more of the artistic creative side and the moral side and the political movement she was interested in. And I do like that it goes from like talking head kind of interview things to talking head interview things. It doesn't have a narrator or something, which would make it a lot more cheesier. Also, the person who selected this film on Patreon, I know, and he might be embarrassed if I say this, I don't know, he actually got his local theater to play this movie. He was like petitioned them basically to play it, and I actually think it's a very good documentary for people who aren't into this stuff to like get into it, because it really like made me go, I need to listen to more of her stuff. Like, it's actually interesting, the things I didn't know and what I did know and everything. So it's actually good on him for actually getting this out there, or really getting a smaller film that like this didn't get a very wide theatrical release. It got a very limited theatrical release in New York, and only really, I know it played at Nighthawk for a little bit in Brooklyn, but that's like the only place I remember it playing. And then it just got released on Netflix and iTunes. I think it got more watched like on home video, which is a shame, because I think it actually like gets you so into it. I think it would be pretty cool to see in a theater. But this film first works as a kind of a profile of Kathleen Hanna, and it works very well at that, and it flows and it moves perfectly in that, and you get why she changed from Bikini Kill to Le Tigre to Julie Ruin, or then to The Julie Ruin, and seeing her evolve through that. But this is also kind of her public announcement about her Lyme disease and her late stage Lyme disease. I thought they did a really good job of that, because it like kind of explained that, you know, before she was saying, I've said all I can say, you know, I need to stop performing, but she was having all these health issues. She didn't really want to say that, so she just sort of gave them that reason and broke up Le Tigre, and that was it. And kind of goes into her being sick, and she actually wouldn't be officially recovered until about 2015, which is like 2 years after this film really came out. This film really covers the Lyme disease thing with a lot of reverence, and not like oh, we have this big revelation at the end of the film, but as much of a part of her life as, you know, feminism or any of the bands were, how this was another stage of her life and how she needs to get past it, and how she's embarrassed about it, and how this was kind of like a really hard stage of her life. And I think that's also because the director, Sunni Anderson, also soon found out after taking on this film and learning about Kathleen Hanna's Lyme disease, and originally that wasn't going to be in the film, which seems like a very different movie, that she had that as well, and actually found how many like feminists and other intellectuals and things have late stage Lyme disease. It's apparently actually really common, and she's working on her second, this is her first feature, her next documentary called So Sick, really about that. And it's kind of interesting. I didn't know that is shocking and scary and makes me believe in like Illuminati type things, but I didn't know that until after I'd seen the film, that the director had the same issue and everything like that, which is really interesting actually. I really like how inspiring this film was, and it shows how to keep going. And even though, you know, you got knocked down, or like everything doesn't work out, or, you know, you might be part of a movement and be part of something and not necessarily rich or famous, or it might, you know, you might be an important part of this whole culture, still like having trouble paying your bills and things like that, but she kept going and she doesn't stop going, and she's part of history and feminism and all these things. It's like she doesn't stop, like she has to keep going. Like she is such a spirit, like an unbottled up spirit. Like you can't contain Kathleen Hanna, and she won't even let this Lyme disease take her down entirely. She still formed a band, she still made music. She was kind of out for a little bit, but then she came back in full force. I knew about the Lyme disease thing for a couple of years, not because I have like insider knowledge, because someone spoiled the movie for me, but like a long time ago, a while ago, I'd heard about that. But I think it really gives you kind of this inspirational thing, like you have to keep going. Like don't let how people perceive you in a certain way, or how her and third wave feminism really believed in this, like just because you're into more girlier things, or, you know, you stalk like a Valley Girl or something, and how she would bring all that honesty and truth into her art. And I found that very inspirational. And I mean, it might sound weird to like a dad white guy saying like I very much believe in feminism and am a feminist, and I believe in those ideals, and I believe in those ideals of being able to make believe in yourself and keep going, and not let like this sort of bullshit of the world and these confined things like take you down, and believe that you have to kind of fit into like only women can do these certain things, and you can't repurpose, you know, a lot of what Wild Girl did, which was take on things like slut or something and write it on their bodies, and like really take back those things, and like be able to be your own type of person, despite the fact that people feel like that's not how intelligence is viewed or feminism is viewed or something like that. And I think it's inspirational that someone like took on all that and just did it in such a fearless way that Kathleen Hanna and this movie just embody in such a way. It's really awesome. I think this movie, it was really enjoyable. It's a really easy watch, and I don't mean that as a takedown. I mean it's like really easy to get into, and if you have any like just a tiny bit of interest in the subject, I would actually recommend really watching it. You will be surprised at like how easy it goes down, but how much you're confronted with all these different ideas and the history of Riot Girl and what was going on in alternative music on the West Coast, and you're kind of like indoctrinated into this world in such a nice kind of, it sort of feels like a disposable go down kind of way, but it's really like kind of more of a meatier kind of meal than this film feels, which I think Sunni Anderson really does an amazing job at doing that. You know, there's not a lot of filmmakers who can really like make this as easy to go down as it is, while not like diluting the message, which I think is a really, really cool thing, because this could be, you know, in a lesser filmmaker's hands, this could all fall apart. And this film does a lot of things kind of within the documentary form, and does them so excellently well, and gives the reverence of who Kathleen Hanna is and who she represents to all these people, as well as understanding her as a person and what her experience was like. It's like it understands the legend, but understands the real woman behind everything as well, and you kind of get the full package of who she was before and who she is now in such an excellent way. I actually am sort of excited to see more films from this director. I think this is an excellent music documentary, and probably one of the best, absolutely best of the decade, and one of the most watchable, and one of the most actually underappreciated. I'm sad to see how little there is on this movie, and I think there should be a lot more, and maybe more people should check it out. in general, because I think you'll be surprised at how much about this whole movement and third wave feminism and Kathleen Hanna you actually don't know, and how much would surprise you and how much would interest you and how much would enrage you, but how much it would inspire you as well. The Punk Singer is one hell of an awesome music documentary, and it's one that I'm glad that I finally got to kind of live in the kind of personality and the world and the legend that is Kathleen Hanna. So if you've seen The Punk Singer and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And this was the winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below for my Patreon and pledge, and maybe I will be reviewing your movie next month. Thank you very much for watching.